Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I'm an Axiological Atheist, and I'm here with my guest. Could you go ahead and tell us your name and what kind of atheist you are?
Sure. My name is Trav Mamone, and as far as what kind of atheist I am, well, basically what I like to do is I like to identify myself as both an atheist and a secular humanist. I know it's total cliche, but it is true for me. You know, atheism tells people what I don't believe, and secular humanism tells people what I do believe. You know, so I don't believe in any gods whatsoever. I don't believe in Yahweh or Vishnu or Thor or Zeus or anything like that. I don't even believe in, like, you know, a sort of pantheistic ground of all being. What I do believe, I believe in love, I believe in goodness, I believe in justice, I believe in beauty, you know, so that's why I identify as both an atheist and a secular humanist.
Right on. Yeah, an axiological atheist is actually kind of like what you said right there in one term. But anyways, so were you always an atheist? And were you also always a secular humanist, or did that evolve or co-evolve together? Or can you tell us about your past?
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting story. I was raised as what I like to call a wedding and funeral Christian, which meant that my parents only went to church when someone got either married or buried.
That's
like
funny.
To tell people. But I wasn't, even though I wasn't, like, you know, indoctrinated into the church and I wasn't exposed to church culture or anything like that, I knew a little bit about the Bible. I mean, my mom gave me one of those, you know, My First Bible books that has, like, the cute little illustrations of Noah's Ark and the crucifix and all that stuff. So I knew the basics, but, like, I didn't really get into, like, the whole, you know, don't do this or you'll go to hell, that sort of thing. Then in high school, I should say that I've been struggling with mental illness for most of my life. I like to tell people I have a mental illness cocktail of depression, anxiety, and ADD. And so it caused me a lot of problems in school, got me picked on quite a bit. And so during high school, I went through, like, a terrible bout of depression, and, you know, I was at a point where I was trying to find anything to make the pain go away, and that eventually led to spirituality and religion. First I tried Wicca, but that didn't really do much. So a girl I started dating told me about, basically was sort of telling me how, you know, how much God loved me and Jesus loved me. And there came this one particular moment where I was having a really rough day. She called me on the phone as usual, and I was breaking down crying because I was so miserable, and she was offering me all these comforting words about God and stuff. And so I guess in that moment she kind of, it's the right time, and I basically became a born again Christian then. And so
What age was that exactly?
17.
Okay.
And for about a good 13 years, I think. Yeah, it was about a good 13 years I was a Christian. I sort of bounced around different sort of theological camps. Like, when I first started going to church with my then girlfriend, she went to, like, this sort of, you know, it wasn't really Pentecostal, but the way they operated and their theology was extremely Pentecostal. You know, they were obsessed with the end times and with hooting and hollering and speaking in tongues. I remember the first time I heard people speak in tongues around me, I thought, like, I was like, wait, did I miss the memo that I was supposed to learn Latin before I got here?
Yeah.
And so that lasted for about just a couple of years. And then I started going to, like, this mega church that had, like, every bad mega church cliche known to mankind. Like, you know, it was very Rick Warren style preaching, and, you know, the praise and worship songs that basically repeated the same, I don't know, 2 or 3 sentences over and over again, and it was like everything was set up like a movie theater instead of traditional church pews.
Right.
To a Lutheran church. It was a more conservative Lutheran church, and I like the liturgical feel to it.
What's that mean? I don't
around
know what
this
that
time
means.
too.
Liturgical?
Oh, liturgical?
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, it's a style. Yeah, it's a style of worship. It's basically sort of more like Catholic, Episcopalian, Lutheran, where like it's a very that sort of high church sort of environment, with the robes and everything.
Oh yeah.
And like there's and the worship style is sort of has a very sort of a bit of a structure to it, and yes, there's plenty of standing up and sitting down, so you definitely get your aerobics that way. So then around the same time too, I became engaged to a woman, and she came from a very conservative Calvinist family. And so when we got engaged, it was, my job as the, man of the house, even though, at the time I didn't realize I was genderqueer. We'll get into that part later on.
Yeah. I am also.
There was... Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah.
Have you ever looked at my gender on my
like,
thing? If you look at my gender, on the thing, it says genderqueer intersex male. I always.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I can relate. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, cool. So anyways, so there was so much pressure on me to be like, this man of God and all this responsibility on me, and I was supposed to be the leader.
Right.
It's if like, it's like my fiance's, I was basically sort of like my fiance's personal pastor, and there was like so much pressure on me to be perfect. And this around the same time I started going into more progressive Christianity. Like I started getting into books like, Brian McLaren and Marcus Borg, and they really like sort of deconstructed my previously held, evangelical beliefs. And I realized, so the virgin birth probably didn't happen. There's no evidence that, Israelites were really slaves in Egypt, and evolution is definitely true. So Adam and Eve, that whole thing never happened with the talking snake. And so little by little, I started deconstructing my religious beliefs. In the process, I, of course, broke up with my fiance and came out as both genderqueer and bisexual. And until finally, I deconstructed God so much that one day he just disappeared. And when I was an atheist, I was about 3 years ago, I think. So yeah, I've been sort of a atheist/humanist ever since.
Right on. So, what finally made it? Just the deconstructing finally made it go away for you. Just thinking about all the arguments. You're saying Christianity. So, if Christianity was not true, did that mean that God was automatically not true? Just wondering. Because you said before about Vishnu and all that. So, did you think about just that because Christianity wasn't true, like you said? I can agree with you. There's a lot of things why Christianity is not true. Did that make you say, well, then God, the only possibility was God was Christianity, and thus once that was gone, it was all gone? Just wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. I never, I guess because, that's a really good question. Once I started deconstructing Christianity, it's not like I thought, oh, maybe another religion has the answer.
Right.
Because I've studied like other religions in the past, and they all have good points and a lot of bad points, but, the thing about, reading scholars like Marcus Borg, he wrote in, I think it was, reading the Bible again for the first time, he was a Christian, but a very liberal Christian. He thought that, the Bible is a completely man-made product. Wasn't like God, was not like man took dictation, but his idea was that, God, could use the Bible. And I think also he thought that God could use other scriptures as well to speak to other different religions. So all that to say is that,
I was going to say, the one point that got me about that right there is, if that is true, then why didn't Jesus say the Old Testament is flawed?
That is true.
I'm saying, because I thought about that too when I was leaving Christianity, and I thought, well, but see, I thought the Old Testament is probably totally false. But Jesus didn't say that. So either he didn't know it was false, or he's not God, and he thought it was true. Or he's not real, and the stories about him are false, and thus all the answers meant it's not real, thus why believe? But I'm sorry to interrupt. When you said that, it reminded me of when I thought, because I thought, well, yeah, but Jesus didn't say anything. He never said the Old Testament was not. So the Old Testament, at least the Old Testament has to be totally true.
Right, definitely.
But
you know what I think really started to get me thinking about, whether or not I was right about the whole God thing was, I've always been a big fan of nature, and there was a time when I was really into sort of panentheism, which is sort of like pantheism, but sort of like, God is like, a separate material from nature, but is still present throughout nature. There's probably a better logical explanation for that. And so I kind of thought, I should probably read up on biology and learn how this world works, because if, the Bible says, I forgot where it was, Paul says something like, or maybe it was Psalms, the earth displays God's glory or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I bet you if I study, biology and stuff, that'll get me, to appreciate God more. Well, I happened to read Richard Dawkins. It wasn't God's Illusion. It was actually Melody. And
it was
it was basically saying, The Magic of Reality.
Oh, Magic of Reality.
Yeah, that
I just didn't hear you.
And, oh, okay, sorry. And so basically throughout that book, it's not so much like, religion sucks like the God Delusion was. It's more about, we don't need myths and fairy tales to describe natural events. Nature itself is amazing, But even then I started planting seeds of doubt, like, well, wait a second, if, there's no, like, supernatural stuff going on, maybe he's right about something. It's funny. All that's to say that I watched a debate video between Dawkins, Francis Collins, Ben Carson, and Daniel Dennett about science and religion, and because I thought that Francis Collins, who is a evolutionary biologist and a Christian, he was going to like destroy Dawkins' arguments, and but Dawkins kept saying, "Well, where's the evidence for God?" And I was like, "Let me get back to you on that." And so that sort of helped really start deconstructing, the whole.
That's good. Yeah, there's no evidence. Well, in the evidence they point to, I always think it's funny because all the evidence, like all the cosmological, the teleological, all these, even if they were true, what they would prove? Vague theism. They would not prove Christianity or any religion. You would even if those arguments were 100% true, you wouldn't know which God to pick. You wouldn't even know if all the gods that humans have are all wrong. You would have absolutely no idea because there's no evidence to point, this is the only God. None. Nothing. In fact, I talked to this one guy one time. You don't even know if it's just one God. It could be a whole army of them. You don't know. The the evidence, if you could take those arguments as totally true, would still leave you with total unknowing, and unknowable. But go ahead, sorry.
No, I was pretty much done anyways.
Yeah, so I think those are funny. Like, okay. I don't put any effort really into trying to understand those arguments because they're just, to me, complete utter fallacies. They almost don't even deserve respect. Because
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you look the cosmological. What started the Big Bang? First off, you don't know something actually started. It could have been a continuation of something before. All we know is we can't see past it.
Right, exactly. You know, it's like, it kind of reminds famous, were you there line. I was like, no, but neither were you.
Right. You quit calling the unknowable God.
Right. Yeah, I used to fall into the whole, God of the gaps thing, because when I started deconstructing my faith, I even, wrote an article for some Christian blog or online magazine where I said, let faith fill in the gaps. And I guess that worked for me for a while, except that I kept asking questions, and the more questions I asked, the bigger the gaps got, until finally, like I said, one day God shrunk so much he disappeared.
Right. Poof, in a bout of reason.
Yes, I was just thinking that. Oh dear, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So, are your family religious to where when you came out as atheist, that was an issue? Or have you not told them?
Oh yeah, I've told them that I'm an atheist, and they're okay with it. Of course, they disagree with me. I mean, they're not huge, major Bible thumpers or anything like that.
Right.
And so I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate that I never had to worry about losing relationships with my family, coming out as either a non-believer and a non-heterosexual. But they do go to church. They go to a liberal Lutheran church, and they're totally cool with me being queer. And we've had some discussions too, and I never say, you're an idiot for believing that stuff. I never say that to anybody, It's just that it's basically, when we talk about religion, it's the same with anyone who asks me about religion. If you ask my opinion, I'll give.
Oh yeah. Well, I agree. If you don't want to know that, don't ask.
Right, definitely. And also, I try to make it clear that, when I do bash religion, that I'm talking about religion as a system, not, religious people. And I don't, think... I've been around the block enough to know that not all Christians interpret the Bible the same way. Not all Muslims interpret, the Quran the same way. So I'm not going to... Oh, actually, that reminds me. About a month ago, I interviewed David Silverman for my podcast, and we were talking about firebrand atheism. And I said, I'm not quite sure about this whole firebrand atheism thing, because, I tend to interpret that as meaning, you think all religious people are stupid and they all believe in the same things. He's like, no. And he sort of explained to me that's not the case. And this was shortly after the Brussels attack, and he said, if you go to, a jihadist and say, you're not a true Muslim because... you're killing people in the name of Allah, the jihadist will say, of course I'm a true Muslim, and he'll open up the Quran and say, here, this is why. And if you go to your peaceful Muslims down the street who don't bother anybody and say, you're not a true Muslim because you're not killing people in the name of Allah, they'll say, of course I'm a true Muslim. It says so right here in the Quran. So... I'm not even quite sure how I started on this tangent, but basically...
Well, you were saying David Silverman was...
What'd you say?
No, I was saying that you were saying something about David Silverman was talking about firebrand atheism, and is it related to the Brussels attack?
Oh, yeah. I was saying, well, I guess what started that was me talking about, when I talk about religion and people ask me what my views are and I say, how much I hate religion, I make it clear that, I know not all Christians, hate gay people. I know not all Muslims go blowing stuff up in the name of Allah, I'm not that ignorant, and I know that there are different interpretations of holy text. So I think that's what I was trying to say. I don't know. When I start talking, sometimes it's like total whoop.
Oh, that's cool. No problem. Yeah, I consider myself a firebrand atheist. Also, I feel that firebrand atheism is kind of what they try to say in a sense. New atheism is the fact of talking out and not being afraid of committing blasphemy. But to me, I don't think it's a new. I don't call myself a new atheist because I don't think it's a new atheism. I think the new atheism is actually the apologetic atheism, the one that actually wants to work with religion. I find that to be new because through the ages, from Socrates on, firebrand was the only atheist style. It wasn't. I mean, Nietzsche certainly wasn't trying to accommodate Christianity. Either was I think what his name is Robert Ingersoll. He certainly was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't buy the new atheism label. I mean, I feel like it's not appropriate. It doesn't mean anything. I understand there's people that are considered new atheists, but to me that's a misnomer because they were just doing what atheists have always done, which is speak out. So I find it funny.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just about. There's a little bit of a delay, so sometimes if I pause, I'm like, wait, is he still talking, or has he paused for me? So, the whole thing about the thing I don't get about new atheism is that I feel like the phrase gets tossed around so much as because let's face it, in any group of people, you have, good people and you've got the total assholes on the internet that ruin everything. And this is true for atheism, feminism, Christianity, and any group you belong to. And so I've just heard a lot of people say, if the reason why, basically blaming new atheism for, assholes on Reddit, it just makes as much sense as blaming, I don't know, third wave feminism for assholes on Tumblr. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't trying to put new atheists down. I was just saying that I feel like it's a misnomer to label it like it is a new thing.
Right.
Because speaking out as an atheist is very historical. I mean, it's like 2,000 years or more of speaking out. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I just find it funny when that term, now we're speaking out. We always have. I mean,
right, definitely.
That's nothing new. But you know how it is. There's classes on religion, but people don't really get classes on atheism. You're taught as a child your religion, or society tries to teach you, but all you hear from society as it relates to atheism is usually very bigoted, very negative. It's not like they're really trying to teach you anything positive.
Right, definitely. Which is another reason why I was sort of afraid to use the word atheist for so long, because, I was like, I didn't believe in God anymore. I was like, well, gee, I don't think, religious people are stupid,
Right.
Until I started meeting more atheists online. I was like, oh, wait a minute. These people are nothing like the stereotype. Of course, I mean, I did meet some people who do fit into the stereotype, but, the atheist community is a lot more diverse than I originally intended. I mean, I originally thought it would be. Like, there are all these articles out saying, how come it's mostly, middle-aged white guys, heading, being the leaders of atheism and stuff. And I was actually interviewing Mandisa Thomas from Black Non-Believers, and she mentioned those articles, and she was like, well, Black Non-Believers, we've been doing this for 5 years now. Did you, do your research and, not see that, hey, black atheists over here, hello?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. In a sense, I think they don't want to see it because they want to keep a bigoted opinion. Just like going against trans people or someone gay. They don't want to see, in a sense, good, role models. They want to try to put down bad things and because it only sells the narrative they want. And if they actually were to see people as diverse, like you said, it would be a lot harder, which is why I think gay rights has gone a long way. Is because a lot of TV shows, a lot of people are coming out as gay and they're normal people, or or they're not doing something that the rest of society thinks is like hurting kids or killing animals or something. They're
right.
So I think that the same thing, that they want to demonize atheism because that's the only way they're going to keep the hate.
Right, exactly. And that sort of goes back to what we're seeing nowadays, with the bathroom bills we see, it seems like, well, a lot of my friends have said that, now that the religious right has lost the war on marriage equality, the next step is, preventing transgender people from peeing,
Yeah. Well, they're going to try everything. Well, they're also trying to make that people don't have to serve you food if you're gay or trans or you don't. I mean, they haven't given up. They just shifted their whole war against something else. So yeah, but I think that it'll happen too. That even if trans rights were totally universal, they would just move to something else. They're not going to give up.
Yep.
Because they're just bigots.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
But they have children. And these children,
right?
They're more atheists, they're more welcoming, they're more gay accepting, trans understanding. I mean, they're fighting a losing battle because the battle will be lost the moment they die.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
I mean, I don't think that people are too, the young people are just too understanding compared to, what came before. Our society is changing.
Right,
I feel.
Yeah,
I feel that
sometimes.
What you say? Doesn't feel like it? Is that what you said?
No, I said sometimes it feels very slow.
Oh, it feels slow, but I'm just saying. For me, I guess I'm an optimist. I look at it and I go, you know what? They can't stop it. I mean, they keep trying and they keep just losing because the people are changing. I mean, I think that the only way they'll be able to stop everything is shut off the internet. You know what I'm saying? Well, because just think, some kid growing up in Kansas or somewhere, and even in the Middle East or whatever, or Texas, they're not limited to that little town or whatever, that space. They can talk to people all over the world. And so their ideas are going to be global.
Right, exactly. Definitely.
So, what made you decide to go from being just an atheist and a secular humanist to start being active? Because you said you talked to atheists online. What made you decide, as you said, to have a podcast and do a blog? What made you decide to start getting involved, active?
Well, I've always been a blogger. Well, when I say I've been blogging. Well, I first started with LiveJournal in college, where I basically would just write crap about how my day was and, weird thoughts in my head. And then I sort of moved to a more polished blog in 2007. This was during a time I was still a Christian, so it was a Christian-focused blog where I would just talk about things, and never really got too big, although I met some friends from there. And then about 5-6 years ago, I started a podcast which focused on, interviewing progressive Christians, and I called the attention of this podcast that was going on at the time called Something Beautiful. It was another progressive Christian podcast, and they invited me on, and so I interviewed a lot of people in the progressive Christian community for about a good 3 years. Then I got tired of it. I hung up my speak, and shortly after that is when I started questioning my religious beliefs. And so I realized that, I had to basically sort of rebrand myself, since I couldn't be a Christian blogger anymore, or even a Christian in general.
Uh-huh.
I first started basically when I sort of, coming from Christian blogging. At first, I was mainly focused on writing about LGBT issues, specifically bisexuality, which is why my blog is called By Any Means, with bi spelled B-I.
Right.
Until I started, I started getting more deeper into atheism, and I realized I had a lot to say about it. And so I thought, okay, well, my blog is going to be sort of like the intersection of atheism and LGBT rights and social justice and all that stuff.
Okay.
The By Any Means podcast, that was sort of like a happy accident. A year ago, I asked one of my blogging friends that I made. His name's Alex Gabriel. He used to blog at Free Thought blogs, but now he blogs at, and asked him if I could,
blogs where?
What'd you say?
You said he blogged at Free Thought blogs, and then he blogs where?
The Orbit.
Orbit. Yeah, I know what it is. Go ahead. You can go ahead and say what it is.
Yeah. And so, at first I would just want to do like a regular text interview where I basically email him questions, then he emails them back to me. But he wanted to do a Skype interview, and I was like, well, I don't really have time to transcribe the interview, so I'll just start another podcast. And so that's how the By Any Means podcast came about. Basically the activism kind of came from a desire for me to really explain issues in a way that hopefully people can understand them, and not just with atheism, but also with social justice issues in general, like racism, sexism, LGBT rights, and that sort of thing.
Okay, that's cool. So, when you did that, and you decided to put it together. So you said that you did LBGT issues first. So did you come out before you were an atheist or after? Or were you always out?
First I came out as bisexual. This was like right during like the last year or so of being a Christian. I already figured out that there was nothing wrong with being either gay, bisexual, or transgender.
Right.
And so, I don't know, my sexuality is always, it took me a long time to figure out my sexuality, because in high school I was like, man, women, they're so beautiful, and yet I really want to make out with my friend Anthony. What's up with that? And so, it took me a long time to figure it out. So finally I did, and I came out, and everybody was happy for me that I was finally happy. So it never was like,
an issue?
because at the time I was going to a more liberal, progressive Lutheran church. The ELCA, they're a little bit more LGBT affirming. And so, that was the church I was going to. And so I knew I didn't have to worry about being, ostracized for being queer.
Right.
So that's my.
So did
story.
you?
As far as being genderqueer, I'm sorry. What were you about to say?
That was going to be my next question. Go ahead. I was going to say, and when did you?
Being genderqueer.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't know there was a term for it until shortly after coming out as bi. I always felt like. I never felt like I was a quote-unquote woman trapped in a man's body, but
right.
I also never really felt comfortable being seen as a guy either, but, I didn't know there was, any third option, so I just thought, I guess I'm just an androgynous guy. Until a couple of years ago, I came across the word genderqueer, and I saw someone on YouTube describe it as being both sort of like a boy and a girl at the same time. It's like, there's a word for that? But it took me about a good year of really sort of exploring my own gender to see if the term fit for me. Because I don't want to, adopt a label to be hip and cool. I don't want to, piggyback off of other people's struggle. And so, after exploring my own gender, I was like, yep, this term describes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. When I read, I learned that I was mildly intersexed only as an adult. I actually went in to get my testosterone checked because I'm super sexual. And so I said, man, it's like almost a problem. And the doctor goes, we'll check your testosterone because if it's too high, we can bring it down, no problem. And he checked my testosterone, and he goes, your testosterone is low. I mean, very, very low. I said, well, how low? He goes, lower than most women. And I was like, whoa. And he goes, you should have known about this your whole life. And I said, I never knew about that. And then he's a urologist, and he says, well, you had surgery on your penis. And the surgery is one they do for mild intersex. And that would match up with your no testosterone. And he goes, but they should have known about this your whole life. And so I said, I was never told anything. And so I asked my mom, and she's like, yeah, we knew. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this whole time? Like, come up here talk about my whole life. I kind of felt like a guy, but I would be around a bunch of guys and go, ooh, I don't really think I really relate. Because how they would talk and think, and I felt like I was an outsider. And I'm around a lot of women, I feel way more comfortable. It's not I feel like a female exactly, it's like I feel blended. Like you talk to a bunch of friends, you feel real comfortable, I just feel more comfortable. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels more right. I don't notice the difference.
Right, definitely.
And so
same thing for me.
Same thing. Yeah. So
except that.
Go ahead. Except that what?
I was just gonna say that. Except that I've never had my testosterone checked, and I'm pretty sure I was never born mildly intersex. So
right.
Yeah, I don't think I'm intersex, but definitely what you were talking about with not fitting in with guys and fitting more with the girls, but not one of them either.
Oh yeah, well. To correct anybody, that I'm not saying intersex is the same thing. Intersex is my biological. Genderqueer is what I feel mentally.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to confuse anyone that. Yeah. That's why I know my when it's I don't like when they say gender. It's like, well, yeah. For me, that's a weird subject because I feel like some of my gender is kind of because male is I'm not a cis male in a sense. Because I'm intersex, and I'm also genderqueer, but I kind of feel male too. I don't like that I have to choose a label. I kind of feel like all of it is true. So that's why I list all three, because it's all true to me. That explains how I feel. Don't really feel like one thing. Anyways, but once I did that, I felt shame, because I felt like I'm not a man. I'm not fully a real man. That felt really shameful for me, really bad. I mean, I felt devastated. I didn't want to tell anybody. And my wife came out as bisexual. Once I started looking in it, I was also went to college and started doing research on gender and everything. I started, researching gender. I saw the word genderqueer. It didn't mean anything to me personally, the word, because I never heard anybody. But then I read the description, and as I'm reading, I started crying. And I was like, it was the first time I felt this chill, like someone understands how I feel. Oh my fucking God. This is exactly how I thought I was just some fucked up person and didn't know how to relate to life correctly or something. Here's other people that are saying how I feel. This is exactly how I feel. Like you said, I thought there's a word for that?
Right, exactly.
So how did you find the term yourself?
Oh, genderqueer?
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but Tumblr.
Oh, yeah. I don't really go on Tumblr, so I don't know. Or Reddit, I don't go on there either, ever.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Could you tell me, since I don't know.
Their perks.
I said, go ahead and tell me about it. Go ahead and tell me about Tumblr or whatever, because I don't know. I don't look at that.
Oh, okay. Alright, well, Tumblr and Reddit, they have their perks. Like, you do get to meet pretty interesting people and be exposed to new ideas, but a lot of, just like everything on the internet, the extremists ruin everything. Where it's more like, more sort of left-wing extremists who are like, white people saying kill honky. And on Reddit, it's basically extreme sort of anti-feminists who think that if you identify as a feminist, you automatically want to kill all men or some shit like that. And so it gets praying after a while. So that's why I don't really use both a lot. The only thing I use both for is if I have a new episode of my podcast, I sort of post a link online there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty much, most of my stuff is Facebook. That's what I've done and what I like. But it doesn't sound like anything I need to try to go out of my way to get involved in. You haven't sold it. So, but obviously it must have had some good stuff. So, did someone bring up the word or explain it, or how did that happen? Do you remember?
Well, about being genderqueer?
Yeah.
Basically, there's this one person. I don't really subscribe to a lot of people on YouTube, but there's this one person, by the name Verity Richie. Their username is Rich and Famous. And when I started following them because, they were doing, before they came out as genderqueer, well, I think now Verity identifies as a trans woman. She was doing videos about bisexuality, and she still does. And until then, I saw like this one video where she said, I'm gonna, my gender identity is genderqueer, and I feel like I'm like this much boy and this much girl. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like I said, since now she identifies more as a trans woman than non-binary, but it's more like a non-binary trans woman. It's like, yeah, or trans feminine, I guess would be the best way to say it. But just that explanation, like, boy and girl together, it's like, oh, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I think it's really great that people can come out and say things because it does help people. That's why I was telling you before we started, how I feel like our lives, when we're open about things, our lives become like a political thing to cause change in the society, even that when we're able to have a bigger impact.
Right, exactly. And that's why I do what I do, talking about, the intersections of atheism and, secular humanism and social justice and all of that, because I do want to educate people. Now, I should say that, I don't want to be anyone's primary source on all these things, but I do want to be a source of information, And a lot of people, I guess I'm doing a good thing.
Well, I think that it's great to have tons of things that are out there. Just like I think everybody's not going to relate to me. Some people won't.
Right.
But some people will that won't relate to someone else. Like one person said before, they don't like the fact that I have a red beard and how I act sometimes. I'm like, yeah, but there's people that will like me because of that.
Right.
So, someone in a suit they may not relate to at all. I come from Southern California. I was raised around gangs and stuff, and my personality is kind of that way. It's kind of odd because of where I'm from, But there's people that will relate to that, So I think that it's great to have all kinds of emissaries out there educating people because there's probably people that only relate to you, and it matters. So I think that we do a lot by just being us.
Yes, definitely.
So, you said you wanted to educate people. So, do you go out of your way to do specific topics to do that, or do you just feel that it happens as you go?
Well, I should say that outside of the internet, I don't really do a lot of activism because I work full time, so I don't really have a lot of time on my hands. But usually it is something that I've given a lot of thought and a lot of researched a lot about. Like, for example, before we hit record, we were talking about the whole safe space debate,
right.
And there's a lot of, it's like, you'll hear some people, oh, everyone's so sensitive nowadays, and I've done some research on it, and I'm like, well, it's not necessarily that. Like for the whole trigger warning thing,
No.
I agree that, I think it's quite ridiculous that you can't even say, the word rape, even if you're just making a little, content notes that, heads up, this article I'm about to write talks about rape, and that sort of thing. So I definitely draw the line there, but, I have no problem, mentioning, I think it does help to, have that little warning at the beginning where it's like, heads up, this article I'm about to write talks about rape, but I don't go overboard where I have to write, R***PE. That was kind of rambly, I know, but
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
but that's basically just an example.
Yeah,
but just.
I know it's hard because of the delay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but I do understand that I talk about a lot of extreme subjects, so I don't have a problem telling people sometimes, hey, I'm going to talk about something, because I know that people don't generally in polite company talk about some of the things I'm willing to talk about. So I try to be, but I know what you're saying. It can be too much too, because you shouldn't limit me from not talking about things. If I'm willing to, if I'm willing to say, this is going to have this, then that I am warning you. So I think warning is good, but I think that not allowing me to even address it could be harmful.
Right, exactly. So basically, what I was trying to get at before I completely lost my train of thought was that, a lot when I really think about things, I try to really explore them from all different angles and explain all the nuances and argument and complexities, because I actually just read on Stephen Novella's blog this morning that he said, the more you study science, the more you realize everything is complex. And so that's what I try to get at when I talk about, not just atheism, but also social justice, that there's several layers of complexity, which I think in a lot of modern discourse, especially on the internet, is completely, cut out of conversations. Even because I find that even when things are black and white, there's good and evil,
right,
wrong and right, there are still 50 shades of nuance in between.
I think that's a very excellent point. I think it's a good way to see it, that issues are not always easy. I always tell I have a friend who's a philosopher, and I talked to him just today, and I said to him, he was dealing with his family, and his sister is drinking, and he believes in harm reduction, which I do agree with also. Harm reduction is basically that you don't try to actually force the person to stop. You try to get them to harm themselves less, in a sense.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, but the problem is, the person drinking is harming other people in the family, and he said he was trying to say, well, they need to understand where she's at. I said, no, you need to understand the family system. If your harm reduction is true for her, it's also true for the entire family who's being harmed. This issue is not limited to just one thing, like you're saying. So sometimes it can be true, but the big picture is not like gone. It's also true. So it's like multiple issues. Right. It makes it. He's like, well, then it makes it very hard. I go, exactly. Who do you help? Who are you doing? Who does the harm reduction, good for? I mean, is it the children that she's taking in the car when she's drinking? Is it their well-being? Is it her well-being for drinking? Is it the parent for trying to deal with all this? I mean, so I agree. Yeah, issues. That's a very good point. Are very complex.
Right, definitely.
So do you have future goals in atheism, or are you going to do it kind of like what you've been doing?
Yep, as far as I know, I'm going to still blog, going to still do the podcast, and whatever happens from there, I'll just see.
That sounds good. So have you been a speaker anywhere, or you looking to be, or not interested?
Well, I have a little bit of stage fright, so I don't know if speaking's really in my future. Maybe a few speaking gigs. I'm not sure how that goes about.
So you eventually want to write a book, since you're doing blogging, you like writing, or do you just gonna stay blogging?
Yeah, I'd like to write a book someday, although I'm not really quite sure what my book is going to be about. I'm still trying to figure that one out as well. I don't know, I'm the kind of person where, I have, a million ideas in my head, but, I only can end up committing to, one or two.
Right. So, what would you say that your experience is? Do you think that the atheist community is welcoming towards genderqueer or towards bisexuality?
Well, definitely in my little corner of the atheist community, specifically the atheist podcast community. I've been on a lot of different podcasts, like Cellular Skeptics, the Secular Barbershop, Atheist Nomads, and Sacrilege, and maybe a couple of others I can't quite remember. Oh yeah, Gay Atheist Manifesto, and talking about, what it means to be bisexual and genderqueer, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback from it, so I guess I'm doing something right.
Well, that's good. So it's been welcoming. Yeah, because some people act like there's a lot of sexism and homophobia and stuff still in the atheist community. Because some people just being, because I know that some people, like when they leave God, they don't always leave that religious teaching. Like, it seems like.
Right, that's true.
I mean, what I'm saying? Like, maybe eventually, but I think some atheists, because I know some atheists that are bigots. In fact, when I talk about Medisa Thomas, I was in I think it was when I was at the American Atheist Convention. I had a friend I didn't know was an atheist and a racist until I took a picture with Medisa Thomas and posted it, and a couple other people posted it, African Americans, and posted it on my Facebook. Then he starts writing all this Nazi and this crazy shit, and I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, and I've blocked a few people for saying stuff about gay or trans. Not a lot, but I mean I've experienced some. So you haven't experienced any of that? I'm just wondering.
It's mostly like one or two people who like take skepticism to the extreme, who if someone comes out as trans, they cross their arms and say, prove it, or something like that,
Yeah.
They just want to, there are some that just want to argue everything. If you say, I like pizza, they automatically jump in and say, oh, that's a claim. You have to defend your claim. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, get a life. We're debating pizza, okay?
Yeah, that reminds me. That once you said that, I remember just recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had put a thing out saying I'm intersex and genderqueer, and he goes, quit saying that, you're just a man, you're not special. And I'm like, fuck you, it's a biological fact of what I am, And even if it wasn't,
right.
Even if I was just genderqueer and wasn't intersex, fuck you anyways. I mean, don't tell me how I feel. But like you said, I mean, I can see because when you explained it, that he's being like uber skeptical, like, no, it's not, He's wrong. Just like you said about, some people feel like there's not trans, it's like, no, actually science has proved otherwise, so okay, you're...
Right, exactly.
You're uninformed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like stupid to me. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that, there actually was a study that showed that apparently, trans women's brains and cisgender men's brains have like different brain patterns. I think it is, even though they both are atomically the same. And so every time somebody says, your trans women aren't real women because you can't change your chromosomes and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, science, brain patterns, hello.
Yes. Exactly. But just like exactly like that guy saying to me, there's not, intersex is still male. Like, no, here's a thing from Nature, magazine that says that science now realizes that it's wrong to say it's just male and female are the only genders. They now realize that is absolutely flawed. I know. That's what's funny to me is I can understand someone saying they're skeptical and they want information, but once you give it to him, I gave it to the guy and he's like, I don't believe that, Like you said, stays.
Right.
I'm not going to believe. Who paid for that? Who's what? Yeah, there's a big conspiracy that they want to remove gender. Scientists are getting paid by what, the trans coalition or some intersex coalition to, or genderqueer coalition to make the facts fit, the gay reality or something. It's like so stupid.
Yeah, the SJWs are ruining everything.
Yeah, I don't think so. You think that? Or you're joking?
Nah, I'm just being sarcastic.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I never know when people say things, so that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do know some people on Facebook that probably would agree with that.
Right.
In fact,
isn't there like some guy online who's like, trying to remove, feminist professor and stupid shit like that?
remove feminists from what?
Remove feminist professors from colleges or some stupid shit like that.
I haven't heard of it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I always thought it was funny, too, because when I went to college, I felt like I was more feminist than the people in college.
Right.
They're like, oh, you probably got your feminism in college. Like, no, I was that way before I went to college. Yeah, this crazy thing of human rights. Yeah. I had to be indoctrinated to understand that.
Right, definitely.
I was more surprised that, like, people in my class, even in counseling, most of it was female, were in my class, and they were like, oh, we don't need feminism. Like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that you're out there and you're doing a podcast. So have you done any podcasts that basically have people with contrary opinions, or what is it you focus on? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's mostly just me interviewing people that I want to talk to about certain things. What I used to do is, like, every week I talk to a different blogger or podcaster or activist, and basically ask them a little bit about their backstory and then about a specific subject that they sort of specialize in and that sort of thing. As far as talking to people who disagree with me, I mean, technically I talk to anybody, but I haven't really done like a full-on debate with them. Like, I keep going back and forth about maybe getting someone like, I don't know, Peter Boghossian on the show, because even though we definitely agree on some things, like we tend to be kind of different about social justice issues. So I thought, well, maybe I can get him on the show, and maybe we can talk about these things. But I don't know. Like I said, I keep tossing out I have like a million ideas in my head, but I only am committing to one or two of them.
Yeah, well, I know he's definitely, I think, against social justice, and he's against the left, I think, pretty hard. I know he said, right. I saw a thing, he said he doesn't like people like Greta Christina. I watched a video where he said that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said that.
Oh, jeez. So he pretty much wouldn't like me then.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably wouldn't like me either. Although I think that he would be a lot more surprised that I understand his position and how to go against it. Because I'm a rationalist. I like thinking like that. So he would.
Right.
I'm for social justice, and I could also talk his stuff because, in fact, I challenged him because he actually on Lindsay's book, he actually made a comment that atheism, is harmful to the removing God. What? And I told him, oh, can you back that up? And he says, oh, it's in Lindsay's book. And I go, is it a description in his book, or is it defended with reason and evidence? He didn't come back to me. Yeah, because it has to be defended with reason and evidence. Otherwise, I mean, I can explain why God is real. That doesn't make him real because I give you an explanation,
right? Or
because I give you a thorough definition of why God's not real. I mean, God's real. It doesn't make it so, So because I feel like it feels to me like he is having a conservative mindset, and so he views people in that way, and then because of that, then he thinks that makes it real, but that doesn't.
Oh, I see.
Those to me, I mean, That's what it feels to me, is that he's making a statement about something that he thinks. It's like if I said, oh, well, you know, poor people and homeless, they're bringing down the community. I mean, you know, they're a threat to us, you know. Well, that would be a conservative mindset, where I think is, wow, there's people on the streets suffering. Why aren't we doing something? I feel like that if there was a natural disaster right now that hit, and people were out there and they needed food and shelter and they needed water, would we go, hey, you know what? I'm not going to help you. It's not my problem.
Right.
We would feel obligated. Well, I feel like these are fellow humans you're talking about. It's not homeless like it's some, you know, brand of a lower human. These are fellow humans that are out there and in need. And to me, I feel like a just society should care for that. That's like one time this one conservative said to me, yeah, well, they choose to be homeless. I go, would you really choose to experience the full brunt of the elements with the possibility of rape and torture or harm or hurt by animals?
Right, exactly.
Would you really do that? And he goes, well, no sane person would. So you're saying that it's possible something else is going on with these people. No one would actually choose this. So if they're out there, then probably they're experiencing PTSD, emotional trouble. A lot of them, you understand, are gay kids that have been kicked out of their homes. There's a lot of other stigmas, the addiction. So people don't choose addiction. It's a disease, right? Well, then no one's chose it.
Right, exactly.
If no one's chose it, then we should not see them out there as choosing to be homeless. These are victims. These are people that need to be cared about. But anyways, I don't want to get rant but I know I see things from a very leftist point of view, and I understand that I have to always, you know, make sure that my glasses aren't too tinted in my own, you know, perspective also.
Oh, yes, exactly. I try to do the same thing. I try to, like, you know, that's why, like, I don't blog about, I usually try not to blog about social justice issues unless I have some facts to back it up. I mean, I don't think I have the time or energy to do, like, a full dissertation about, you know, why I think the gender wage gap is real and why I think rape culture is real, but I got a few links that can, you know, perhaps maybe influence some people, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that the point, let's say that to the conservative, there's no gender wage gap in the fact that they feel people are choosing the jobs. And I would say, yeah, but are they made comfortable to choose otherwise? Because that's like saying, well, why aren't the people coming out as homosexual down in the deep south? Well, maybe they're afraid for their life. I mean, I have friends that are in the Middle East that are atheists that don't want to say anything because they could actually fucking die. So
right, exactly.
I think they don't understand oppression. Oppression to me, can also be the ability not to do otherwise.
Exactly.
So I mean, to me, a lot of times it feels like it's narrow logic that conservatives have. They like look through a tunnel and they go, I don't see anything. Well, stop looking through the tunnel.
Right.
Stop looking through the tunnel and see the big picture. Maybe that reminds me of some of the conservatives. Well, this is my property and no one's going to take it. And if anyone tries to tax me, they're being coercive. And my thinking is, do you own the earth? Oh, you don't own the earth. Well, I bought this. You bought it from someone who owns the earth? Well, it's the government's. Do they own the earth? This is, get the big picture here, people. Nobody fucking owns the earth. We're all basic. How many animals pay to live? I mean, we all own the earth. It's this coercion idea to think of property to begin with. I'm not saying we can't have things, but this thing like mine, don't take anything, it's not really yours. It never was.
Exactly.
It's all of ours. We all live here. Anyways, I'm very political too, so.
Cool.
That's why I laugh. I put up a thing before that says, yeah, I'm a social justice warrior. You know, who gives a shit? I think it's a compliment. Whatever.
Right, exactly. I actually have a T-shirt that says "Social Justice Warrior" on it, and I mostly wear it for shits and giggles. Maybe I'll wear it at ReasonCon. I mean, not ReasonCon, Reason Rally this year.
Reason Rally, talking about the one in Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Cool. Maybe we can say hi then.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm going to have to bring like a stool to sit on because my foot sometimes goes out. Like sometimes I have to use a wheelchair.
Oh, okay.
Which that's why at first I was going to say I'm not going to go because I know you have to walk. It's too much walking.
Right.
And my friends are like, oh, you got to go. Everyone's going to go. You got to go. I'm like, well, I'll have to bring my wheelchair and hopefully I don't need to use it. And I'll probably have to have a stool to sit on. They're like, come anyways. I'm like, yeah, okay. So, which I think is hard too, because some like the last, like I know some people talk about a lot of different social justice issues, but one of them is ableism. I always cannot get around, and like I had to use a wheelchair at TAM, the amazing meeting in Vegas. The whole time I was there, which was like in 2015, I had to go there the whole time in a wheelchair, and it was not super convenient, but some places people have things. Like I went to Madison, Wisconsin recently, and they had a place where the ramp was so high that I couldn't have physically pushed good thing I didn't need my wheelchair. I would have never been able to get up there.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like that has to be, we need to care about other issues other than, just one kind of issue because, should, just like I think too, I was thinking that most of these conventions, like the people will say, well, why aren't there more females? Well, why aren't there more like daycare or something? We need to have, what about people with children and stuff? I mean, we need to be, it's like we need social justice to me because to me, too many issues can be, if it's not personal to me, I can not think about it. I can not think about a trans, bathroom or what's going to happen. I can think about not having children or not having wheelchair access or all kinds of different things. People I feel like that we need to bring up those issues and we need to address them, especially to me at places like conventions, because for some people that's the only time that they can meet each other and meet people like them and make friends. And I think it should be more inclusive to and comfortable for everybody involved.
Right, exactly.
So have you been to other conventions?
No, I haven't. I don't really have a lot of time to travel.
So have you been to any? Or
actually, I don't really have a lot of money. Yeah.
Oh, the money too, yeah. Well, some of the conventions are really expensive.
Right.
But it's weird the difference. Like I'm going to one in the one I went to in Missouri was free. I'm not Missouri. In Wisconsin was free. I'm going to one in Missouri. It's pretty cheap. But I'm going to one in Canada, and it's like $450 for the weekend. It's like real expensive.
Wow.
Because even American Atheist was like $300 and something.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it should be, to me, like I was thinking too, why don't we have where we're sponsoring a few people, for like you said that can't don't have the money or something. Like I don't know, I'm really for like outreach to get as many people as possible and to be as inclusive as possible. So I think that just having people that can afford it, we should have like scholarships to each convention or or something,
Right, exactly. Well, I know there are like a few free conferences. My big thing is traveling costs,
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I feel kind of antsy sitting down for a while, and so, an actual road trip, it might be fun, but I'd also probably get antsy after a while, so probably I don't know, going to a convention outside of my state in a plane would be best, but, plane tickets are pretty expensive, so traveling costs is probably my biggest thing.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, I live just about an hour and a half from D.C., and so that's why I'm definitely going to Reason Rally this year.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think it's kind of cool that Reason Rally is relatively free. I mean, it's free to go, but there's events you can pay for. I think that's a kind of a cool thing.
Yes, definitely.
So do you have any thing else that you wanted to say or any questions for me?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot of good topics. And I thank you again for, inviting me on to chat with me.
Definitely. I appreciate the time.
Sure, no problem.
All right, well, I guess then we'll call it over and bye.
Bye.